How's everybody doing this morning? Like Shelby said, I'm going to be asking you guys a lot of questions. So if you guys can do me a favor, make this easier for me. Take yourselves off mute when I do ask questions. If you guys can turn your cameras on, that would be awesome too. Don't have to. But this is pretty interactive, and I like to be interactive, especially when we're going through a session like we are today, talking about roadblocks, because we've all got roadblocks in sales or roadblocks in communication. And that's what we're going to be kind of talking about today. There are typical things that salespeople run up against, but more often than not, just people run up against in roadblocks and how to communicate to people. So it's a pretty interactive session. We'll probably take up the whole 45 minutes, but I really want, my goal today is to give you guys some nuggets. Hopefully you just walk away with a nugget today that you can say, okay, maybe all this didn't resonate with me, but here's one or two little nuggets that did resonate with me. I also want to hear what you're looking to get out of today too. So if you wouldn't mind, take yourselves off mute and, what are you looking to get out of today's session? Is it just maybe learning about some of these roadblocks, or maybe there's a question or situation or a roadblock you're currently facing that you maybe want answered? So I can just go around the room. You guys can introduce yourself, who you're with, and what you're trying to look to get out of today quickly. Kay Vogler, I'll start with you since you turned your camera on.
And I almost just turned it off. But anyway, I'm Kathy Vogler. I am with Expedient Technology. We're a managed IT service company in the area.
What's something you're looking to try to get out of the day?
I believe sales can be done in a very constructive, disciplined manner, and would like to know your steps and processes.
Okay. Awesome. Krista? You're off mute. I just can't hear you. If you are talking.
I don't think it's working. Krista, if you want to put it in the chat, we can do that as well.
Absolutely. Just go around. Robin? Mike?
Yeah, I'm just kind of here to get more information. Like we got a lot of sales reps that work underneath of me, and just any kind of nuggets I can pick up to help them along with their way.
Okay, awesome. Bethany?
Hi, everyone. I'm from Conceptual Clinical Laboratories. I'm the account executive. I am here a lot of times with our clients, it's not necessarily difficult to get them to say yes, but sometimes the buyout is a little bit harder internally. So I guess I'd like to know, how do you get your internal partners to say yes to bring on a new potential client?
That's a good one. Okay. If I happen not to address that in this talk, Bethany, stick around and we can talk about that a little bit too.
Okay, thanks.
Jill? If you just jumped on, Jill, we're just introducing ourselves and maybe a nugget you're trying to get out of today.
Hi, my name is Jill Brewing, and my company is Schoolie Mitchell, and I'm in like the first 6 to 7 months of launching my business, and so all nuggets in sales that I can pick up are greatly appreciated.
Okay, awesome. Who did I not call on? C. Hefner?
Hi, this is Cheryl Hefner. I also work for CompuNet Clinical Labs, and I'm a physician's account manager, and I have the same request, I guess, roadblocks that Bethany had as well. And that's true of the other people that are on from CompuNet as well, because we're in the sales department.
Okay, very good. Like I said, if I don't answer it, if I do answer, you guys let me know if I answered it somehow to help with that stuff as we go through these, but
okay,
I'll stick on and help you guys. And I think that's everybody. Did I miss somebody?
I think
Me.
we got everyone. Oh, true.
I'm Melanie Hogston. I work with CompuNet as well, and I'm the sales support coordinator. And I'm here. I'm kind of new to the department, so I'm just looking for all the information that will help me on my journey.
Awesome. Glad you're here, Melanie. Let's get right into it. You guys can see my screen okay? We good?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So real quick, just I guess a 30,000 foot overview of who I am and what we do. Sandler Training is the world's largest sales coaching training platform in the world. We're the 800-pound gorilla in the room that typically nobody really ever hears about. But just up there on the screen, some facts about us. 30,000 hours of training a year, 30,000 clients a year. We do over almost 100,000 hours of training through, if it's training, coaching, from leadership stuff, the sales stuff, the customer service, you name it, we touch it and we get involved in it. We have clients for the Fortune 100 companies all the way down to the individual level. A lot of the people I typically work with have problems in prospecting or the sales meeting or account management, which we're going to address today a little bit. But we touch all facets of it. I'm around Troy. I was an executive in the downstream energy business, helped sell a company here in Troy. I'm from Ohio based, so I've worked with a lot of logistics, transportation companies, but I also do with companies in the wealth management sector, in the pharmaceutical sector, the manufacturing sector. So I touch and see a lot of different companies here in Ohio and across the United States. So as we start talking about roadblocks today, I want you guys to kind of take a lens of, they either can be technical roadblocks or conceptual roadblocks when we're facing a lot of these different roadblocks. So let's define what that looks like. Technical roadblock is, I don't know potentially what to say, how to say it, when to say it, who to say it to. I have some type of technique or some type of strategy or tactical roadblock in my arsenal, in my repertoire. And I just don't know what to do with that. So it could be more technique driven that I have a roadblock in. Or you could have a conceptual roadblock, which is more of an attitude or mindful. I know what to say, but I don't know why I'm not saying it. I know what to do, but I don't know why I'm not doing it type problem. So when we're running through a lot of these today, just take the lens of, is this a technical problem of mine or is this a conceptual problem? Or maybe it's no problem at all, and this isn't an issue for you, which is absolutely fine. A lot of the problems we see end up being, most stalls, roadblocks, objections that we see are interactions with people or interactions with the buyer, not necessarily a product or service problem that companies are marketing out. It's usually human interaction issues with the buyer, with the seller. So the first roadblock I wanted to kind of go through with you guys is kind of this buyer-seller dance. And this is what we typically see out of traditional selling or buying systems. And, after we kind of market a product or prospect out our product, what ends up happening is the buyer expresses interest in that product or service, so is willing to sit down and talk with us. We come in as salespeople, we do a needs analysis. They hear a lot of good things, they still act motivated. It turns into us proposing a solution because they showed interest. So we present and propose. After that, they obtain information. What happens after that? We try to close or attempt to close. Next happens, the buyer avoids commitment. We handle those objections. They more often than not disappear on us. All of a sudden we're in the follow-up mode, trying to follow up to see if we're going to close this business and praying and hoping that something happens. I'm not saying this is what always happens. This is what we see a lot of the times happening in this buyer-seller dance or in sales or buyer systems. I tell you guys this because the buyers and procurement agencies that are very savvy know this is how we go about our business a lot of the times. It's up to us to understand and see it and get ourselves out of it or do different things to help this not be a roadblock. Because typically what happens is the sales cycle slows down at the back end of this. It's very fast up front, getting the needs analysis done, doing the presenting and proposing. And then I see a lot of salespeople a lot of times spend a lot of time in follow-up mode trying to figure out how to close the business. And that tends to lead into very inefficient times in which we could be prospecting, having new meetings for people, but it slows down. Or in the case that Bethany and Melanie and everybody brought up, maybe it's slowing down because we're bringing it to our company and we don't know how to get it across the finish line with our company. So we're going to talk about roadblocks in 4 different areas today. In these 4 areas: prospecting, the sales meeting, account management, and our self-concept. So we'll get a little heady, a little between the ears at the end of this. So let's talk about roadblocks in the prospecting area. Some of you might prospect, some of you might not, right? But I think as anybody started out in sales, they did some type of prospecting to help to get their business established and move forward. 4 common roadblock areas in prospect. Number 1, constructive avoidance. And you guys can chime in anytime you want to talk about one of these or have a question about any of it too. So please do. And at the end of these 4, I'm going to ask you guys what you got out of it. But prospecting, constructive avoidance. I see salespeople all the time sit here and go, I don't need the prospect. I put it off. I get too busy. I'm putting out fires. Or I prospected a lot last month and it turned into a new piece of business. I prospect when I need the prospect. And we do everything we can because prospecting is one of those things we all hate doing for the most part. So we do everything we can to constructively tell ourselves, conceptually or technically, we don't have to prospect, or we should avoid this process, whether it be cold calling, cold emails, networking events, you name it. We do everything we can to constructively avoid this process. Number 2 is 0 differentiation. I spend a lot of time talking with salespeople about we have to differentiate ourselves. What does that differentiator look like? A lot of the times it goes back to very intellectual stuff around our products and services. But when people are trying to buy from us or be curious in our prospecting efforts about something we said, we have to sound different. We can't sound the same like every other salesperson out there. When we start to sound the same, when we feel, look, smell, sound the same like everybody else, they all of a sudden put us in a bucket of salesperson. And if we get bucketed in salesperson, we all know when we say the word salesperson, instantly red flags go up and say, I don't want to be sold. I don't want to be taken advantage of. And if we're there to build trust and build a relationship with somebody and we sound like another salesperson, we're getting off to the wrong foot with them. So something in our messaging, something in our talk track has to help us differentiate ourselves from the competition. Some people like to talk about this in our elevator pitches, or we talk about it in our buzzword called 30-second commercials. It is our ability to reach out in our prospecting efforts to gain curiosity, interest, and arousal in something we said. We have to psychologically use pattern interrupts in that messaging to get them out of their system. Because when we get in their system, they have a series of talk tracks that say, I'm just looking, or can you send me that information, or I'm not interested, or this, because once they hear salesperson, they put us in that bucket. So there's something we have to do and say in that messaging that sounds different. Third thing, unbalanced approach. I work with companies all the time that sit there and go, Jason, all we do is cold call. That's what we do. I said, okay, that's great. How is that working? Yeah, but why am I here? Well, we want to grow faster. We're not growing fast enough. Okay. So maybe we need to change that up and have more of a balanced approach where we do cold calling, cold emailing, maybe into this new digital prospecting world where people are doing digital prospecting with videos. Maybe there's more networking events. Maybe we need to do more intros or referrals, right? But we need to have more of a balanced approach to prospecting. It just can't be one thing that we do all the time. But I'll also say if it's working, don't change it. We just maybe have to tweak it. And that's where the 4th one comes in, business intelligence, when it comes to prospecting. A lot of the times we do things based on subjective feelings about what we do in our prospecting efforts, but we don't have enough business intelligence, enough objective intelligence that we identify, organize, and track in our prospecting. Let me dive into that a little bit. When it comes to prospecting, do we identify the leading behaviors needed out of us that are 100% in our control that we need to be doing on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis? And what do those look like? For an example, I'll run into somebody and somebody goes, hey, networking is great for me. It works. If I go to these networking events, I get people to talk to me. I say, that's absolutely right. So how many cold calls are you doing? How many network events are you doing? How many conversations are coming from those networking events or from those cold calls? I don't know. I just know it works. Well, that's kind of a subjective way to look at it. We have to identify what we're doing that's in our control, then eventually track that, organize those activities, and then track them. And then we can use that to help self-diagnose where we're doing great at, maybe where we can get better, and potentially what do we need to do more of that's actually working, or what do we need to change completely together? Because when it comes to prospecting, the last thing a salesperson wants to hear is you need to do 60 dials a day or 100 dials a day or 20 dials a day, whatever that number is, and that's the way it's always going to be. We prospect to obviously have conversations, and then we prospect to figure out ways to be more effective and efficient in those methods. But if we don't track it and organize it and manage that from an objective side, we never know where to get better at. So there's 4 things in prospecting that I see a lot of roadblocks are. What questions, thoughts, concerns, agree, disagree with any of those things I just said, or questions you guys might have?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
It's Kathy. Well, how do you handle the sales team roadblock of I don't want to do cold calls? Just straight out, flat out, don't want to do them, not going to do them. Do you feel an outsourced service can speak the same as your sales team could?
Well, no, because I'm a big believer in we have to do our own prospecting a lot of times, and I'm just not a believer in people. I don't know. This could be my own personal opinion, but if I'm reaching out to develop a relationship with somebody, and somebody else starts that relationship besides me, people buy from you first. Then they buy from your company, and then they buy your product or service. And if we outsource something to somebody else, they're starting to buy that person that they first talked to, not me. So I'm a big believer in me doing the work. Now, if they don't like to cold call, that's okay. There's other ways to prospect. We can cold email. We can do networking events. And eventually, once we track this stuff over a period of time, let's call it 90 days. If you have a sales manager helping them track that stuff, they're going to be able to come back and go, okay, what kind of results did you get? Are those good enough? Are they not good enough? They're going to self-diagnose this to go, okay, I got to change something. I might not like to do cold calls, but I got to change something because I'm not getting the results I need. Kathy, does that help?
Absolutely. That's perfect.
Okay. Any other questions on the prospecting roadblocks? All right, let's move into the actual sales meeting. Let me define sales meeting. This is any time we start to have a conversation with somebody to basically to the end we're closing business. Okay. First roadblock I see is not flexible as a communicator. We have to learn if people are different, if people want to buy from us, people want to trust us, people buy from us because they trust us. One, people trust us because they like us, right? And people like people that are like themselves. That's where you'll find a lot of the times, you'll start talking with somebody, go, oh my God, why does this person, why do I have such a connection with this person? You might have a lot of the same behavioral personalities and how you communicate, but not everybody's that way. So you have to adapt and be flexible as a communicator in the ways they want communicated to, because you are the salesperson. You are in control of how these conversations are going to go. You can't just sit here and go, I'm going to be myself and think that's going to work all the time. It might, but we got to be able to recognize patterns and recognize better ways to communicate. It could be in our behavioral templates. DISC is a template out there. I know there's several others. DISC is identifying behavioral styles, the dominants, the influencers, the compliance, and the steady relators, and figuring out what those behaviors look like in each one of the buckets and trying to figure out who they are. Active listening is another one. In active listening, we have to be able to parrot words and restate words and then paraphrase emotions that we hear out of people. When we restate words, people start to feel like they're heard and understood. When we paraphrase emotions that people are telling us things, they're like, oh my gosh, we get this. And it doesn't mean we do it all the time, but we have to learn how to do it in very segmented ways that builds that likability, that builds that trust. So we also have to understand the different ego states that people are in and the different buying emotions people are in. People come at us very critically. We have to bring that back down to a different level that we can communicate in an equal way. Number two, no expectations is a huge roadblock, especially starting out a meeting. Do we have the amount of time that we're going to set aside in this meeting? Do we get out each person's agenda, their agenda, our agenda, what needs to happen with how we're going to ask questions in this meeting? What's going to happen at the end of the meeting? Do we say that up front? You know, by the time we get to the end of this meeting, a couple things could happen. One, we could see that we're, you know, a great fit for each other and a yes, and we talk about what yes looks like. But, or we could get to the end of this meeting, we recognize we're not the right fit. And if you tell me at any point in time this isn't going to work, that's fair. It's perfectly okay. I don't want to waste your time any more than my own. Setting those expectations up front helps, one, build rapport. It lowers down those defense walls, because a lot of people get to the end of the meeting and they don't know where it's going to go. There's a level of uncomfortableness at the end of the meeting. The more we do that up front and give the actual people permission to tell us no, man, all pressure's off. It also sets the tone for, if they know they have to make a decision by the end of this meeting, they're listening better. Psychology tells us that all the time. When you give people a reason where they have to make a decision, they're going to listen to what you're saying in a lot more attentiveness. I see this all the time, that we don't set the right expectations, the right ground rules of how the meeting's going to go and how the relationship's going to go. Number three, not uncovering the emotional trigger. We can find needs all day long. I think what ends up happening typically with needs is, I don't think salespeople have a hard time finding out the need of a customer or a client. What's really hard is finding the emotional trigger that they're willing to act on. And there's a big difference. A need is something that needs done, right? I work with a lot of transportation, logistics, manufacturing companies. I'll just give you guys an example. You know, it's not, if you're trying to haul freight, I work with logistics companies that are trying to sell loads back and forth and broker loads back and forth. It's not real hard to figure out what the need is. The need is they need a trucking company, a logistics company to handle the load from point A to point B. That's the need. But what's the emotional reason that they're looking at you? What's the emotional reason they're reaching out to somebody different? There is a level of pain there that they potentially want to act on or don't want to act on. It could be surface level driven, that they're just, hey, this is what we need. But what's the reason for it? What's the business reason for it? And then what's the personal impact to that? As salespeople, we don't dig deep enough sometimes. We hear one thing, this is their need, and all of a sudden we go back and pitch our features and benefits of how that solution is going to work. We need to figure out what the emotional reason is for them wanting to make a change, wanting to act on something different. Fourth thing, no defined sales system. I don't think when we're trying to do a sales system, a systematic process, do we have all that set up properly? Is there, hey, this is how we do pre-call plans. Hey, this is how we do debriefs. This is the questions we want to ask. These are the questions we want answered. I'd see often when it comes to the sales meeting, we don't do enough of the work between pre-call plans, debriefs, you know, prepping for questions you're going to get asked, prepping for roadblocks and objections you're going to get, and understanding how you're going to deal with that. I see a lot of people winging it and hoping for it and trying to use their personal presence to get them over the hump. Those are 4 key areas in the actual sales meeting for some roadblocks. What questions, concerns, thoughts you guys got on those 4? Nothing? All right, let's keep moving. Roadblock area number 3, account management. And I say account management is anything after the sale. So it could be customer service. It could be your role in handling that account moving forward, which would be the relationship or whatever you have to do within your company. It's all different. But the first one I see is communication is a huge roadblock. How do your clients then now want to be communicated to? How often? When? What type of communication? Do we get that up front and talk about those things when we're closing the deal? Because I see a lot of salespeople end up spending a lot of time trying to recommunicate or reach back out after the sale's done, and they wonder why they're having issues. Does that person want talked to every week on a phone call? Or is their preference to get a phone call? Is it an email? Is it a text? Do they want quarterly business reviews done? Maybe quarterly business reviews are too much. Maybe it's only twice a year. Maybe it's once a year. Do they want stopped in with donuts once a week? Like, maybe you won't do that, but point is this communication barrier about how we set it up when the account's done, and how are we going to communicate with them? How are we going to communicate issues when these issues come up? How are we going to deal with them? What parties need to be involved? So that whole onboarding process and how we communicate with our accounts, I see, as simple as it sounds, I see a lot of different roadblocks come up.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
I think we're on the wrong slide.
There, it just didn't come up. Sorry. Account
You're
management communication. Awesome. Thanks, Shelby. Second one on there is just checking in. This is a huge pet peeve of mine, and I've made this, I'll be the first to say right now, I've made this mistake 1,000 times. As a salesperson, we're reaching out to an account and say, hey, I'm just checking in. Just checking in, wanted to see how things were going. But this is not good, because we scream salesperson when we start calling somebody and saying we're just checking in. And it actually builds a layer of wall up and a layer of mistrust up. Because people, when you do that, they're going, they aren't just checking in. We're kind of like, we're a little fibbing or lying, but we're just checking. We're not just checking in. We're checking in to check on business, but to see how things are and to check to see if we're trying to build more business with that account. We want to see how all that's going. We're just not checking in most of the time. We're trying to build upon or expand an account. We're not just checking in. We have to be very, very careful using this type of language in our emails and our calls, right? If not, it does sound salesish, and we start to scream and sound like that salesperson. And we're trying not to be that person if we want rapport, and we want to be that trusted advisor. Third one on there, the big 4. When it comes to account management, we could probably spend a whole hour really digging into these 4, but I'm going to give you kind of a brief overview of them. We want to look at 4 different areas of account management: account designation, account classification, account satisfiers, and account attributes. So we have to break our accounts into those big four areas. So let's talk about those account, how account classification first. So we have a process called CARE: keep, expand, recapture, and attain. What area are those accounts in? Are they in the keep area? Are they in the recapture area? Are they in the expand area? How are we dealing with that account? When it comes to a couple of the other areas, like account satisfiers, what are those accounts looking for? Have they told us what success looks like in their areas? Are we measuring that objectively? Are we reviewing that objectively in those satisfactory areas that we're trying to improve the account on or make improvements on? And this is one I know that, like, it sounds simple. Like, we knew when we won the account, this is what they were looking for and doing. But how often do we have a system, a systematic process that helps us communicate that and go back and forth with it internally and externally to that client. What's that look like? And then account attributes. So when we win accounts, we have something we call, when we're in the marketplace, there's threshold attributes that account looked at us and said, hey, this guy fulfills this need. They're in the market space. They're doing a good job with these threshold attributes. You know, it could be just, this is what we wanted executed. They do a good job in that area. And then we have performance attributes that we do above and beyond the competition. And then it goes to excitement attributes. And those attributes are attributes that we work with in accounts. Those accounts look at us and go, man, that we can't leave you because of these reasons. And over a period of time, those excitement attributes turn into performance attributes turn into threshold attributes. And if we're not careful, we'll put ourselves out of the marketplace because all of a sudden the bar has been raised in that space, and those threshold attributes don't keep us in that marketplace anymore. We have to constantly, in account management, be looking at our accounts and be looking at our products and services and wondering where we are with all of our products and services and how we take care of those accounts. Any questions on communication? Just checking in, are those big four? Okay. Let's dive into our self-concept. We're going to get a little heady here. This is going to take a little bit of participation too out of you guys, because this is where I see more roadblocks happen than the other three combined. So in our self-concept, number one, equal business stature. I see more often than not, salespeople are subservient to people they're trying to sell something to. They feel less than. They act less than. And a lot of the times buyers want to put us there too. So they will come off very critically to us and ask us to do things, and we answer those things right off the bat. And that puts us in a subservient position right off. We have to believe and understand that we're equals. We might have different roles. We could be a salesperson selling to owners of companies. They're no better than us, no looking at us. We have a product and service. They have a need. We're trying to see if there's a fit for that need. We can't just bow down and listen to every demand and want they ask of us. There has to be equal business stature, which is an adult to adult conversation around those things. If it is a conversation that is more critical in nature at us, that we're trying to protect our own okayness in that, it's not good. We have to figure out ways to get them off their critical pedestal and down into an adult area, which isn't emotional. They could be coming at us very emotionally a lot of the times to get reactions from us. We can't counteract that and be emotional ourselves. We can't bring our emotions into the situation either. And I'll see that happens a lot of the times. We have a rule like leave your child in the car, which means leave our child emotions in the car during a sales meeting. But man, that's easier said than done. It's easier said than done when people are bringing us problems or throwing things at us or asking us different stalls and objections for us not to having to answer that question for the thousandth time, not to bring some emotion to the table. But there are emotional triggers in us too, in our self-concept and our self-image that we have to be very careful of, or we'll come across the wrong way. Number two, our money concept. Money is a conceptual problem. And here we are as salespeople having to reach out to, or what our parents tell us, don't talk to strangers, don't talk about money, all growing up, most of us. And now we get into the sales world, and what are we doing? We're talking to strangers, we're talking about money. And we might have an abundance mindset around money, or we might have a scarcity mindset around money. And a lot of the questions that we need to ask could have a major roadblock, because we might have a scarcity mindset around money and thinking that our products and services cost too much, and we're scared to talk about that issue with them. Our buyers might have a scarcity mindset or maybe an abundant mindset around money, and we don't know it. If we have an abundance mindset around money and we start talking like $1,000 is no big deal and they got a scarcity mindset around money, we just made them feel not okay. And our problems and our concepts of money can make people feel not okay or okay. And our job as salespeople is always to make people feel a little bit more okay than us. And this is definitely a big roadblock in our ability to communicate and our ability to build trust and our ability to get money out on the table sometimes, because we need to get it out on the table. A lot of the times we'll push it off and all of a sudden wait to present and propose, and that's way too late to start talking about money. Third thing, personal presence. A lot of people feel this is just an energy thing or an aura thing, and it's not. Personal presence is a technique. Personal presence is built up over having success in our behaviors, success in our actions, success in our attitude and our mindset. And over time, doing the right things over and over again and having the right success over and over again builds our personal presence. And this is something that always be worked on. There's 3 areas of personal presence. Our character, and not just how we feel our character is, but how do people perceive our character? When people look at us, this is something most people don't do, is like, how do you feel about my character? People, 1, are going to answer that question all the time, but 2, we don't ask that question to enough people. Our character is what? Doing what we say when we're going to do it, not over promising and under delivering. How do people perceive us with our character? How do we communicate in our personal presence? Is it clear? Is it understood? Or is it wishy-washy and open-ended and read between the lines? Those things don't build trust. Those things are manipulative. How's our energy in our personal presence? Is it positive? Do you create that aura around you that people want to be around you because you create a good energy? Is it empathetic? Is it listening? Is it calm? Or is it jittery and all over the place and negative? Those 3 things, if we keep working on them, the way our character is and what we say and how we do things, how we communicate and the energy we give off, end up building our personal presence. But they come from the behaviors and the attitudes and the mindsets that we take on every day. Number 4, self-image. We will never outperform how we see and believe ourselves conceptually. If I was to take you guys right now and go, void of all your roles, void of your sales role, void of your mom, dad role, sister role, husband, homemaker role, you name it, all those thousands of roles we play in life right now, and say, take those all away, devoid of all your roles. How do you feel about yourself, 0 to 1 to 10? I'm not asking you guys to answer, but think about that. If I was to ask you that question right now and say, well, you know, I'm a 7 or I'm a 5 or I'm a 3 or I'm a 9, doesn't matter, right? However you feel about yourselves, really, if you answer that question honestly, you will never outperform yourself in your role. So if you're trying to get results and roles as a 10 salesperson, but you feel that you're only 5 conceptually, or your self-image is that way, you're never going to outperform that 5. We've got to do things in our self-image that build up that self-image so we can go out and perform better in our role. We came into this world as a 10, we're going to go out as a 10. Something happened in between there, that something somebody said, or something our parents said, or something somebody told us said something that all of a sudden, if we're lower than a 10 in that world, we bought it. And now we got to figure out how to clear it out and get better with it. Questions on self-concept or questions on all this. I know we're starting to push time, so we can just open up the floor and you guys can start asking questions.